Hey, what's going on, everybody? Good morning. Thank you for bearing with me this morning. We had some technical difficulties with getting our internet up, but hopefully everything's all set up. Hopefully we don't lose it as we go through here. But if you've been following us for this past month and a half of our launch so far, one of the things you know that we've been talking about so far has been intermittent fasting. And there's good reason for it from all the many benefits of it, including reduced inflammation, helping reverse insulin resistance, even boosting brain power like neurogenesis. The amount it boosts neurogenesis is just insane, increasing production of BDNF. And then also anti-aging longevity benefits. There's so many benefits to intermittent fasting. But one of the things that many of you guys have asked about, you've sent us messages, I've seen a lot of guys on Instagram asking me about this, is how do you actually tweak intermittent fasting to actually burn fat, lose weight, and boost your brain power? And that's one that I know is very common, and there's some things that I've used that have really helped in terms of intermittent fasting for weight loss. And I'll share some of my tips, but I'm actually more curious too, what are some of the things that you guys have learned over the course of doing intermittent fasting that's really helped you guys lose weight? So I'll share some of my tips, and I'd look forward and I'd really enjoy to see some of your guys' comments down below and see what you guys think of this one. But one of the first things is this video won't go so much into the science of intermittent fasting. I'm actually going to save that for my good buddy, Dr. Michael Vandershelden, who's on the podcast this week, actually. He's episode number 4, and we're actually not talking about intermittent fasting. We're actually talking about hot and cold stress. So that's actually a really awesome interview that I think you guys will really enjoy. We'll have him back on again to talk about intermittent fasting, but you can actually get his book, The Scientific Approach to Intermittent Fasting, which is this guy right here. And for this week and next week, if you leave a rating and review on iTunes, we'll actually send the first 10 people one of these books right to your door. So it's an awesome resource. Highly recommend checking this out because it's just an amazing resource to really give you a scientific approach onto how to tackle intermittent fasting and just the science behind it. It's a really awesome resource. And also here, let's just get into this a little bit. So intermittent fasting, if you've never heard of intermittent fasting before, one of the common misconceptions of intermittent fasting is that it's a diet. And that's not the case. If you were to type in intermittent fasting on Google, intermittent fasting diet, that's not what it is. It's more of a protocol or schedule of eating. And it's not so much a calorie restriction type thing as it is a hormonal kind of reset. And the way that intermittent fasting works is really absolutely fascinating. Before I get kind of into that, you can find more details on the science, how it all works in Dr. Mike's books. Amazing resource. You can even find a video on YouTube where he talks in depth about it, but we'll actually give away 10 of those books as well. But the main way that I heard about intermittent fasting was through Dr. Mike. We actually went through school together, and I remember him and another buddy of ours, Dr. Dean Jones, talking about how they were trying this new thing, intermittent fasting. And the first time I heard about it, I was the guy, I needed to have 6 or 7 meals a day, right? I was working out constantly, and I was like, I need to have breakfast, I need to have my second breakfast, I need to have my brunch, and then I got to have my lunch, right? I like to have breakfast and snacks throughout the day. And so when I heard about this, and they were talking about how intermittent fasting can help you burn fat, gain muscle, I just thought it was more of like a calorie counting scam. You think, oh, you're skipping breakfast, so you don't need as many calories, and that helps you cut calories throughout the day. And really, I was way off on this, but I couldn't deny the results that they were getting with it. And so I'm looking at them, and I'm watching them just absolutely just shed fat, just getting super lean. And I'm like, man, there has got to be something to this. Like, what in the world is going on? And so, I was very stubborn at the time. And eventually I decided, you know what, I'm going to try intermittent fasting for myself. And what I had noticed was, yes, definitely fat loss benefits for sure. I've noticed consistently with intermittent fasting, not only has it been easier to lose fat and actually burn fat and keep a consistent weight, I've actually noticed improved gains in muscles, in my performance, and just a whole host of other things. But the first time I actually tried it, the thing that actually really got me into intermittent fasting was actually the substantial cognitive benefits that I felt. I felt clear, I felt focused, I felt energized. And there's a reason for it. And that's what actually really got me on intermittent fasting, because if it was just for losing weight, I would have stopped a long time ago because I feel like I'm in pretty good shape now. But intermittent fasting has helped me not only lose a lot of weight, but also keep it off and make it very easy to do so. And so that's one of the cool things I love about it. But the cognitive benefits were so profound that I just had to keep going with it, because I would feel so good during my fast, and then I would have lunch, and all of a sudden I was crashing. I was like, there's something to this fasting period that I got to figure out, because if I can make this last long term, there's going to be substantial benefits. And that's what really brought me to intermittent fasting, was those cognitive benefits that come with it. Now, the way that this works, and the way it works for fat loss as well, is intermittent fasting. Essentially what you're doing is you're going for at least 12 to 16 hours, if not more, during a no eating window, so a fasting window, and then you break your fast and you have roughly 8 hours in which you can eat food. So that's called the 16-8 method. So you have 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. And that's the most popular way to do it. That's the way I recommend for most people to do it. It just seems to be the easiest for people to do long term. And so when I first tried this out, I really noticed substantial benefits with it. But what happens is after the 8-hour mark, this is the key thing, after roughly 8 to 12 hours, your body burns through all of its glucose, all of its sugar that's been taken from your carbohydrates, burns through all of it. And now your body no longer has any more glucose to get. So in order to get fuel to be able to do all the things you want to do, your body has to switch over to fat as a fuel source, which is really cool, because now your body's going to start burning fat for fuel rather than sugar, which is really awesome. And this is where we get into some of the tweaks that some people need to make, especially if you're someone who's maybe a little bit overweight, has a very carb-heavy diet. It can be a little bit more challenging for your body to switch over to this fat-burning mode. So play around with it, get consistent. And this is where ketone meters and blood glucometers can really come in handy to really analyze and see how well your body's switching over into a fat-burning mode. And we could talk about that in another video. But basically what happens is after your body burns through all that, you start burning fat. And fat then breaks down into what's called ketones. And ketones, it was thought for a long time that the brain could not use anything but glucose for fuel. But it turns out that ketones can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and actually be used as fuel, which is really cool. But also, fat ends up being a much better fuel source than carbs. So here's what happens. Fat, if you're looking at a molecule of fat and a molecule of carbs, fat actually gives more units of energy than carbohydrates do. But on top of all that, fat actually is a cleaner fuel source and actually gives off less free radicals from its metabolism than carbohydrates do. So not only are you getting more energy per unit, you're actually getting less inflammation, less free radicals. Because remember, those free radicals cause oxidative stress in the system, which creates tons of inflammation in the body. So it's really incredible to see that fat's actually a much better fuel source for your body if you can learn to tap your body into using that as your predominant primary source of fuel. And so intermittent fasting helps you switch over to that a lot easier, because now instead of constantly feeding your body sugar and fuel, what you're actually doing is you're making your body have to use fat for fuel. And this is where you can get into some of the really cool hacks and tricks in terms of helping your body use fat for fuel and actually losing weight, which is really cool. So this is where I really started to get into this, and the cognitive benefits that come from using ketones, many people can tell you is substantial. Many people notice more clarity, better focus, better attention, more energy throughout the day, especially during that fasting window. Maybe not immediately, because it takes a little while to kind of get used to that. But once you get into it, substantial cognitive boosts and benefits with that. And so intermittent fasting is a really helpful way to get your body into this state of using ketones for fuel, which is called ketosis. And so that's where we're really going to kind of dive into, is how do you get your body into that? How do you tweak that a little bit? Because there's some really substantial benefits when you learn to get your body into a state of ketosis. And one of the first ones is reduced inflammation. And so when you actually use intermittent fasting to get your body into ketosis, the inflammatory or anti-inflammatory benefits are just astounding. And one of the ways that this works is you're actually giving your body a little bit of a break from actually having to constantly process food. And so that's one of the first ways that it helps reduce inflammation. The other way is it stimulates something called autophagy. And autophagy is your body's way of cleansing itself. It's basically a self-repair kind of mode. And what it does is during this time where you're no longer eating, your body can start to focus on clearing out dead waste or dead cells or damaged cells, because those damaged cells, if they're allowed to stay there, they're not going to be working properly, and they cause lots of oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. So it's really important to get those cleared out, and intermittent fasting helps your body do that quickly, rapidly, and better than anything else. So really helpful way to do that. But also, when you're not getting an overabundance of carbohydrates, you're not getting an overabundance of of sugar, your body can actually start lowering its insulin levels. Now, most people, especially if you're on the standard American diet, probably aren't having the best lifestyle. You're probably having a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar. So your body's been running high on insulin all the time. And remember, insulin's the way that your body is able to take that glucose or that sugar from your blood and put it into your cells. So if your body's constantly running high on insulin, it basically gets callous to it. And that's what we call insulin resistance. Your body isn't able to use insulin enough, which means it has to produce more insulin to get the job done. And insulin, when it stays in the bloodstream, creates tons of inflammation, as well as does sugar as well. And so fasting can help your body get a little bit of a break from that, resensitize your body to insulin. So it can be really powerful if you're someone who's dealing with insulin resistance. It can be a really powerful way to overcome and help reverse some of that. The other thing, and this is where we're kind of getting into, is the brain-boosting benefits of intermittent fasting are substantial. And there's a Dr. Mark Madsen out of Johns Hopkins University, and he does this amazing TED Talk where he talks about in his lab, they've noticed substantial boosts in BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And this is something that Dr. Mike talks in his book as well. And brain-derived neurotrophic factor has been called Miracle-Gro for your brain. It's a powerful cognitive enhancer. It helps balance your mood, helps promote the production of new brain cells, but also actually preserves the healthy, good brain cells. So really powerful thing to have in your bloodstream, and especially in your brain. But on top of that, intermittent fasting also boosts your rate of neurogenesis, which is your body's ability to create new brain cells, which is really powerful in terms of helping your body better adapt and become more resilient to stress, but also helps you learn quicker, helps balance the mood. There's so many benefits that come with neurogenesis. And if you want more info on neurogenesis, head over to episode 2 of our podcast, and I interview Dr. Brant Courtwright, and he shares basically all the tools and tips you need to get any info on neurogenesis and how to boost your rate of neurogenesis. And the last one, and this one's really cool, and I think a lot of guys love this one, is intermittent fasting actually helps boost your production of human growth hormone. Now, one of the most common things we hear when talking about intermittent fasting or fasting in general, and this is a question that I had when I first started fasting, was if I'm not getting calories, if I'm not getting protein especially, during that 18 or 16-hour window, I'm going to start losing muscle. All this muscle that I started building, that I've been working hard on, I'm going to start losing it. The reality is that actually doesn't happen, and there's a reason why, because intermittent fasting boosts your production of human growth hormone. You may recognize human growth hormone from these huge bodybuilders who are taking exogenous or outside HGH to actually boost muscle growth. But what we know is that HGH, when it's produced naturally in the body, has substantial muscle-preserving benefits, muscle growth benefits, not over and abundant. You're not going to get absolutely swole on it. But what we notice is that there's actually profound anti-aging benefits and longevity benefits. So there's a lot of research being done on HGH. But also what I learned recently is that HGH is actually very neuroprotective. So it helps protect your brain from stress, helps you make your brain more resilient, which is really cool. So more even brain boosting benefits with intermittent fasting. So those are just some of the benefits. If you want more, I'll include a little link here into some of the benefits of intermittent fasting that are some of my favorite here. Let's see if I can put this in here. There we go. You can check that out. And then also, let's just get right into some of my tips here. So after doing this, I've been intermittent fasting for about 2 years now. And so after kind of tweaking it, I was that kind of guy who was always, I was 20 pounds up, 20 pounds down, 20 pounds up, 20 pounds down. I just could not consistently lose weight. I couldn't keep it off. It was always a challenge. I felt like I was going from one diet to another. But I was the kind of guy, I worked out so that I could eat, but I also ate so that I could work out. You see what I'm saying? Probably some of you could probably relate to this, where if I'm gonna eat a lot, I better work out a lot. And I was constantly doing this cycle over and over, and I was just wrecking my body, trying to make sure I kept up with my calories and my food intake. And intermittent fasting has really helped make this an easy process, but also I've noticed substantial benefits in my performance in the gym, which has been really, really cool. So here are some of my tips that I've found that have really helped in terms of making the fasting transition easier, but also making it so that you're tweaking it more for fat loss. And one of the first ones is I've actually found that stretching the time out longer to about 18 to 20 hours to have more benefit than doing just the 16-hour fast. And so that's one of the first things I've noticed. I think Dr. Mike and I have talked about this several times. He actually stretches his fast out to 20 hours at a time, which can be challenging. That's something you have to work up to. So don't go immediately into a 20-hour fast. But the other thing that kind of helps during that period, and this would be my second tip, would be to add in some healthy fats during your fast to help your body just get a little bit of fuel to make that fast go a little bit longer. And some of those healthy fats can be things like coconut oil, MCT oil. I personally use brain octane oil from Bulletproof with a tablespoon of butter in my coffee every morning. And that just fuels me for hours. I don't even need to eat until 12 or 1. So it really works really well. So that's one of the first things I would mention. But also, when you get those fats in the morning, it helps your body switch over into fat burning mode a little bit easier. And the more you get those fats, you start to get your body more fat adapted. And fat adapted is when your body becomes more prone to actually using those fats for fuel rather than sugar. And that takes a little bit of time to work up to. The third thing I would say, and this one's really profound, takes some time to get used to, but would be working out to end your fast. So I know that seems pretty crazy, and for me that seemed like there's no way that would be possible because I like high intensity workouts. And so if I was going to work out to end my fast, that means I haven't eaten in 16 to 18 hours. So I'm going to be so depleted. How in the world does that work? Actually, it works really well. And actually, many people have noticed substantial benefits in their performance even during the fasted state, and actually can still work out and have these high-intensity workouts. But what I will say is that does take some time to get used to, so make sure you kind of slowly work your way into it. If you're someone who's really, you try working out fasting, it just doesn't work for you, a high-quality branched-chain amino acid can really help kind of tweak that a little bit, give you a little bit of boost without breaking you out of your fast during that. But here's what's really cool when you work out in a fasted state is, remember, your body is now gone out of its glucose. It's completely used all of it. So now you're total fat burning mode. Now you go into a workout, you either go on a run or a high intensity workout. What is your body going to use for fuel? Fat. Exactly. So your body's going to use fat for fuel. So now you're just going to be burning loads of fat to provide your body energy during that fat burning state. Plus you're going to get a boost of HGH, or human growth hormone, during that time. So you're going to preserve the muscle that you're trying to build while at the same time burning fat. How cool is that? That seems like one of those magic bullet pills that they always talk about in those infomercials. Burn fat and gain muscle. This is the way to do it. And it's natural, and I love it. And so that's one of the first ways. And like I said, if you're one of those people, you start noticing you're getting a little bit nauseous, or you're getting dizzy constantly, your body just doesn't seem to be adapting well to that, then 1, make sure you're getting plenty of water. 2, try adding a high-quality branched-chain amino acid in there. That can really help make that a little bit easier. I've noticed a difference with that. I don't really need it as much anymore, but it really helps when I'm in that fasted state. The other one that I highly recommend, and this one really worked well for me because I was a former fat kid, so when I eat, I make sure I eat. And this one is, don't overdo your first meal. And especially after you've been fasting for 16 to 18 hours, you can probably imagine you're going to be pretty darn hungry. And now, after tweaking a little bit, I'm not as hungry, but when you're first starting, that's one of the biggest complaints or challenges that most people have is you've been fasting for 18 hours, you want to eat, you want to get it in now. And so that can lead a lot of people to overdoing on the first meal, and especially with snacks, whether it's carbohydrates or sugars. So making sure you don't overdo that can really help keep your body, keep that energy throughout the day. Because if you overdo that first meal, you're just going to be wrecked throughout the rest of the afternoon. You're going to hit a lull. You're going to be tired because your body just all of a sudden got this huge spike in insulin and sugar, and it's just going to start crashing. So definitely don't overdo it on the first meal. Number 5, I would say, is the healthier you eat, the better results you're going to get. And so this always seems to be the most obvious, but the most overlooked. You see tons of things online on how you can use intermittent fasting and don't even change your diet. Now, I do recommend when you're first starting intermittent fasting, don't change your diet too much because it may take a little bit for your body to get used to intermittent fasting. But then once your body kind of adapts to that, then you can start tweaking your diet. So that's just a little side note there. But what I've noticed for most people, and even for myself, is when I'm not eating well while intermittent fasting, I notice that fasting period to be much more difficult. So let's say the night before I had some ice cream or I had some sugar or I just had a really carb-heavy meal. What I notice is that fast in the next morning is so challenging. It's so much more difficult to get into that fasted state. And also, I just don't notice as many benefits. I feel a little bit more bloated. I don't notice the fat loss benefits from that. So one of the biggest things that I can tell most people is to start adopting more healthy fats, lowering the carbohydrate intake, because what you're going to do is you're going to keep your body in this constant state of ketosis, and that's going to allow your body to burn more fat throughout the rest of the day, and then into the next morning while you're fasting again, you're going to continually up your rate of ketosis, and that's just going to help keep you burning fat. So really helpful there. And I always say, I recommend trying, if you haven't tried it before, try a ketogenic diet or a low-carb, high-fat diet and see how that works for you. Most people notice that it keeps them more satiated throughout the day. You're getting less calories, but you're also getting cleaner fuel. Because remember, fat's a much better fuel source than carbs are. So make sure if you try it, you're going to notice some pretty good benefits with that. Number 6, I'd say don't forget water. This is a big one. So especially during the fasted time, a lot of people will notice they're going to have a lot of cravings. And sometimes that can be just your body transitioning through from a carb heavy or a sugar burning point to a fat burning state. And so that's just part of the process. As your body kind of figures that out, you're going to have some of those cravings. But some of the ways that you can help with some of that are things like bone broth. That can also really help with some of those cravings that you might have. But also water is a big one. A lot of people forget that when you're dehydrated, it can actually mimic a lot of those cravings of sugar. So one of the things I've noticed for myself is when I'm actually very dehydrated, I really crave sugar. And so now that's kind of my new tweak where I know if I'm craving sugar, most of the time it means I'm pretty dehydrated. So don't forget to have a lot of water in the morning, especially if you're drinking coffee. Make sure you're replenishing your stores with tons of water in the morning, and that will also help keep you full too. So try that out. And then lots of good fats. Also, don't overdo it on protein, especially if you're trying a ketogenic diet or a high-fat, low-carb. One of the biggest challenges we can see too is that people get way too much protein. You know, they think, oh, if I'm having high fat, I need to also have high protein with it and just have tons of protein, tons of veggies, and I'll be A-okay. But we find for the most part, for most people, is if you get too much protein, your body starts to do something called gluconeogenesis, which basically is when your body takes protein and turns it into sugar in your body. And guess what that does to ketosis? Takes you out of ketosis and does the opposite of what you want to do. So make sure you're not overdoing it on the protein, because that can do the opposite of what you're trying to do, which is burn fat. So it's a really kind of a fine point there. So play around with that a little bit and see if that helps. The other one, this is one of my favorite things that I've found with intermittent fasting that I think is a huge benefit to intermittent fasting that can be really powerful for people who have gut issues, is intermittent fasting is really a profound kind of golden period for you to actually heal your gut. Because think about it, if you're constantly giving your body food that it constantly has to digest, it doesn't give that opportunity to really allow it to relax and just kind of take it easy and heal a little bit. So if you have gut issues, intermittent fasting can be really powerful in helping to overcome that. But also what I like to do, and this I've noticed profound benefits for myself, is once you're done with your fast, and then especially say you just finished your workout, one of my favorite things to do is to flood my gut with tons of micronutrients. That can be a green smoothie, a green drink. I actually prefer using fruit and vegetable juice that we press at home. And what that basically does is, imagine now your gut's totally clear. It's been able to relax, heal, it's ready to go. And now you just flood your gut with tons of micronutrients, tons of vitamins and minerals from the juice, and all of a sudden you give your gut this total restoration or rejuvenation that it totally needs. So I just think that's just such a powerful way to do it, because your gut houses and stores GABA, serotonin, acetylcholine. That's where a lot of these neurotransmitters are made. Your gut's been called your second brain for a reason, because it produces all these things. So it's a really powerful area to make sure you keep healthy. And intermittent fasting is this golden time where you can actually start to heal and get that gut healthy again. So really recommend trying that out if you can. If not, go for like some sort of green powder or green smoothie. It can always be helpful too. We load ours up with kale, spinach, celery, cucumber. We don't do too many carrots or beets because those are all also high in sugar as well. So we try to keep it to those really healthy leafy greens, and just notice profound benefits with that. And so that's most of the tips that I got for you guys in this video. I'd love to hear some of your guys' tips for losing weight on intermittent fasting, but these tips have really helped me feel in the best physical and mental shape that I've ever felt in. It's made it easier to lose weight and also keep weight off, which has been great for me. It's made life so much simpler for me, and really it's just been about skipping breakfast. That's as easy as it really is, and kept me from getting that constant flux up and down. And I hope these tips have been helpful for you. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you found them helpful. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Feel free to share it. And if you'd like a little bit extra help, I'll include a link down here where you can get our full 7-page intermittent fasting starter guide. We actually just launched this today. Let me see if I can find this link for you, and I'll include that at the bottom. You can go ahead and pick that up. It's totally free, and that'll help you kind of get